all empirical science is creation science, because God made the world. Empirical science is the study of how the world works. So all empirical science is creation science. So even evolutionists do creation science.
Greetings to the brightest audience in the country. Welcome to Real Science Radio. I'm Fred Williams.
And I'm Doug McBurney, science geek, amateur comedian. Fred, it is great to be back with you talking about real science on Friday.
Today we are honored to have with us Dr. Joel Brown, director of the Creation Research Society, the oldest creation organization in the world. It was founded back in 1963, and it's still going strong today. So welcome to the show, Dr. Joel Brown.
Thank you, Fred and Doug. Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah.
So, full disclosure, guys, I have a long history with CRS myself. I served as their webmaster for, I think, 20 some odd years. So, over the years, I've seen firsthand the quality of their research and the commitment to scripture. It was always such an honor to work with so many great scientists at the Creation Research Society.
Yes.
Well, it's funny you say that, Fred, because you have a much better, deeper understanding of CRS than probably I do. You're probably the expert in the room right now.
Now we do need to clarify for some of the younger people in the audience, Fred was not the webmaster in 1963. I think that was a different guy, a much older guy.
Yeah, thanks for clarifying that for us, Doug. Yeah, definitely not 63. I think I started in 64. Just kidding. I think it was probably around the 1998 time frame, 2000, somewhere in there. So, yeah, Glenn Wolfram, Dr. Wolfram, kind of ran that part of the organization, and he reached out to me one day and said, "Hey, would you like to be our webmaster?" And I'm like, "Yeah, sure." Yeah, it was great.
So I'm the new kid on the block, and I'm sure I'll kind of fill in some of these details as we go, but I have been a CRS member for a grand total of 2 years.
Oh,
2 years.
wow. Okay.
I joined. Well, yeah, and let me clarify. I'm the director of the research lab here, director of the society, but we have a board president and those sorts of things.
Gotcha. Oh, that's right. You're the director of the lab. You took over Kevin Anderson, the late, great Kevin Anderson's role.
That's right.
Dr. Anderson, huge shoes to fill. I know his wife, Diane, and she still works for CRS. Kevin Anderson, the first time I heard him speak, it's one of the number one arguments I still use today. And I learned it from Kevin, and it was about how DNA not only, sequences and builds a protein one way, but it does a whole nother thing when read backwards. And so I use that analogy all the time of, try to write a book that tells a story and then tells another story by reading the book backwards. That's just
good luck.
Yeah. And I think Kevin was also a molecular biologist, I believe. And I think that's your discipline, Dr. Brown.
That's exactly what I would put it. My background is in molecular biology and genetics. And for the audience, that's also known as tiny stuff, which you cannot see without a very expensive microscope.
Yeah. And you've got some good equipment there at the CRS lab, and that's in Arizona, right?
Yeah, that was one of the big surprises for me, and a pleasant surprise. Coming into this position, the Lord was doing some things in my life. I was actually very comfortable as a teacher. I was a high school science teacher in the St. Louis area in the public school system. And life was good, but I had this, sinking feeling that I needed to be doing more with the training that God had given me. I needed to be using that more for His glory. And then right around that time, I stumbled into CRS and joined the society, the oldest, largest network of creation scientists in the world. So I joined the society, and at the same time, they were looking for a director out here at the lab, and the Lord worked in our hearts to move us out here. It was not a decision we took lightly because our family, it was a big move for us. But when I landed here, I was thinking in my head, like, okay, boy, how do you run a lab from scratch? And it wasn't completely from scratch because Kevin had started setting it up, and I was really impressed at the things he had already assembled to be able to have a functional lab. Now, we don't have all the facilities that you have at a place like Cornell University or an Ivy League research institution, but we have a very impressive functional lab space here.
Okay, now I want to get to the lab because I want to hear about that, but let's go back real quick. You're teaching high school science in the St. Louis area, and it sounds like you were already a Christian. When did you become a Christian, and what's the story there?
Good question. So, I was blessed to have been raised in a Christian home.
Amen.
And that's the greatest blessing in the world. Now, I chose to serve and follow Christ and believe on Christ and become a Christian when I was about 5 years old. My dad was actually a pastor, so I heard the gospel like right out of the womb. But of course, you have to, and this is critical, you have to personalize it at some point. You have to make a decision for yourself. And for me, I did that at a very young age, and I grew up with actually it didn't turn me off growing up in a Christian home. And sometimes it does to other people, but I had godly parents that just raised us in the nurture and admonition of the Lord. And I mean, here's the thing. They taught us to love God's word, but they didn't teach us to, avoid the pursuit of knowledge or the pursuit of science or education and academics. And so it is very possible to do both. And I'm a big proponent of you can love God, you can serve God, you can pursue God, and you can love science, you can pursue science. God made science.
Yeah, well, he wrote a book that tells a story one way and then another way, and there's probably 6,000 other ways we haven't figured out yet. So, wow, that's inspirational. And just for any young people out there who are thinking about having kids, or maybe you want to go into the ministry, I've told a number of young men, the most effective ministry you can have in your life is to get married and have children and raise them in the nurture and admonition of the Lord, just like you said, Dr. Brown. Thank you to your parents, and God bless them and your whole family. That's awesome.
Yeah, amen. And let me echo that. So I now am a father as well, and I have 8 children. And I always tell people, the family first. Like that is my mission. Number one is my family. And when I run into creation scientists out there and other young researchers out there who are building a young family, I always remind them, family first in terms of our mission with God. Let's raise those kids and bring them up to be God-honoring people in the future.
Oh, awesome.
Wow.
Awesome.
So I want to get back to your lab. I'm really curious what, CRS is doing right now. Do you have like interns come in? Give us a rundown of your whole setup there in Arizona.
Okay, good question. So about 4 years ago, we moved from a desert space, CRS, and this is called the Van Andel Creation Research Center. That's our fancy name for the lab. The lab was out in the desert in northern Arizona. And then an opportunity arose to move here to the Phoenix area onto the campus of Arizona Christian University. And really, this has been a godsend. It's been a very great collaborative, symbiotic relationship between us and the university. So now we have this beautiful lab space, fully renovated, newly renovated. And most importantly, we now are on a campus with eager students that are just dying to do things in the laboratory, to grind bone and all that fun stuff, which can get monotonous. It's nice to have that young zeal in the lab. So it's been a really nice relationship. We are working with the students here. We'll have 5 students in our lab. Starting this August, the most we've ever had. So it's a growing program. I'm the full-time staff researcher. We also have some part-time techs or a part-time tech and some volunteers that help out in the lab to push the research forward.
And now, is everything you're doing like top secret, or is there anything that you can talk about?
If I told you, I'd have to take you out back and shoot you. So
classified.
Oh no. Let me show you one of the things we're working with.
Oh,
this is a bone, in case you couldn't tell.
Okay.
It's an alligator bone.
Oh.
So So we called up an alligator farm in Florida, and we said, "Hey, can you send us your the biggest legs from your biggest alligators that you got?" And sure enough, they sent us. FedEx arrived a couple days later, and a box full of alligator legs. And so we dissected those legs and pulled out these leg bones. Now, the reason we're interested in these leg bones is because this bone is dead. It's no longer part of the living alligator. But it's not just a mineral structure. Bones are made up of a mineral component, and they're interwoven with protein. A protein that is the most abundant protein in your body right now. So these bones are loaded with collagen.
Collagen.
And so now we can take it and say, well, this alligator died a year ago. Is there still collagen in this bone? And
I'm
we can
gonna
measure
guess yes.
that. Oh yeah, tons of it.
Yeah.
Tons of it. In fact, collagen is an extremely stable protein by design. You can see in the design of this protein that God designed it such that it would last a long time, and that's good, because when the collagen in your body starts to break down, you get these things called wrinkles.
Yeah.
Yeah, so collagen is designed to be very stable. It holds our body together, and so sure enough, this bone is still loaded with collagen. But then we can take these bones, we can grind them up, and we can measure how long the collagen lasts. So we've been doing these experiments over the last year. We did this in cow and ostrich and alligator. And you might say, who cares? It's a bone with collagen. Well, here's why it matters. Because collagen is found in dinosaur bones.
Oh, yeah.
Which are reportedly, 66 million years old.
Right.
And yet we're finding collagen. So that's one of our main objectives right now, is to study the the degradation at an empirical level, so a measurable level, not theoretical, but can we measure the degradation of collagen and project how long it should last? And we can. I'll give you a spoiler alert.
Oh,
It's less than 1 million years.
Oh.
So, Dr. Brown, is this part of the iDino project that Kevin Anderson started? Is it still under that moniker?
It sure is. And don't ask me what that stands for, because I always forget.
Yeah.
Investigating dinosaur and natural osteotissue or something like that.
Well, I had to put that on the website, and I don't remember what it stood for. So
I
don't feel
thought
bad.
it was just because it started back when they first launched the iPod, and so everything was
I know
everything.
it comes across like that.
Oh, that is so cool. You know that here at Real Science Radio, we have a page on our website that's one of the greatest repositories of dinosaur soft tissue news articles, clinical papers. We link to as much as we can on dinosaur soft tissue. And so it's the creationists who are investigating an empirical, what's the word I'm looking for?
A decay curve.
Yeah, an empirical model by which we could actually. So how many evolutionary biologists are involved in this type of work to examine the empirical rate of decay of collagen?
It's interesting. There is actually a field of science around this topic. It's called bone diagenesis. How a bone converts into a fossil. And so it's not a very big field, but they actually have a conference of bone diagenesis. And there's a couple big names that are the experts in the field. And it was actually these folks that were the biggest critics when Mary Schweitzer found the soft tissue and collagen, because they were crying foul, like, no. We are collagen decay experts, and collagen does not last 66 million years.
Congratulations, you played yourself.
So they were the biggest critics of it back 20 years ago when this stuff started unfolding. Now most of them have come around to the idea that evolutionists are pushing that. Well, we don't understand how collagen decays.
Okay.
And it must last 66 million years.
And isn't that odd how a group of experts who have been studying a subject for years, maybe decades, would suddenly say that they don't know? That seems odd to me. I think they would know.
Yeah, I mean, they certainly knew 20 years ago.
They know.
Yeah. And so will your research confirm what they thought they knew 20 years ago?
It does. In fact, so they published kind of their theoretical models of how long collagen should last. And there was even some empirical work done. And our data, using a different approach, matches their data very nicely. In other words, it's just another point of comparison to say, yeah, collagen does not last 66 million years under these conditions.
Yeah, and by the way, I appreciate the fact that our audience is hearing you say, we know that evolutionary biologists and scientists, we know they do real science. We know they know how to do real science, and we don't discredit everything they say just because we're creationists. Your research is going to confirm, maybe it will help with their self-esteem, that they won't have to admit that they were a failure. They'll say, you know what, we actually got that right.
Well, and this is, by the way, how science is supposed to work.
Yeah.
Where things are repeatable, where what you do in one lab in Arizona matches what somebody did in the UK, and you kind of get this multi-points of reference to say, all right, here's what we know at an empirical level, what's happening with collagen. Now, I want to make a distinction between empirical science, which is what we do, which is what even evolutionary scientists can do. They can do empirical science. And all empirical science is creation science, because God made the world. Empirical science is the study of how the world works. So all empirical science is creation science. So even evolutionists do creation science. The difference is when they make the historical interpretations. And now you're getting into historical science, which is non-empirical. It really shouldn't even be called science.
Yeah,
Just
CRS pioneered the way with this whole dinosaur soft tissue, along with Kevin Anderson, Mark Armitage all started this, and then Harvard and Stanford, they kind of came on board here a little bit later. And it's interesting. So my daughter, when she was in college, she had a tutor, and she mentioned to him about all this dinosaur soft tissue, and he said that's not true, blah blah blah. And so she gave him that list that we keep at RSR. It's rsr.org/dino. And I think Dr. Brian Thomas now manages that list of all these scientific papers. And he didn't know what to say. I mean, because he'd said, oh, you don't have any, where's your peer-reviewed papers? As you get that from that stock answer a lot of times from evolutionists. Well, where's the peer-reviewed studies? Oh, here you go. Here's this really big, long list from Stanford, Harvard. I mean, the guy had nothing to say. I mean, how can you respond to that? So it's like you said, I love how you put it, really evolutionary scientists, they're doing creation science. I think that's the first time I've heard someone say that. I like that.
Hey, and I appreciate you guys putting that list together, because I stumbled across that list, I think through Brian Thomas, and I was like, this is fantastic. Now I use it too. So
Awesome. Well, and I'm sure we'll be adding more to the list as people crack open more dinosaur bones. By the way, is that something that you guys would be interested in doing at the lab? Is that something you can do? Is that something maybe members of our audience could help you get your lab up to being able to do?
And what specifically are you referring to?
Like cracking open dinosaur bones and looking for collagen. Could you do that right now?
Okay. Yes, absolutely. But we are looking to the next stage now. And let me pull the curtain back a little bit and tell you kind of the next stage. In fact, you might be able to guess the next stage. So we're finding collagen in dinosaur bones, not just us, secular labs as well. If there's proteins present, could there be
DNA?
Okay, yeah, Fred, you're right on that. Now, this is another one of those things where evolutionists have been saying for years and years and years that DNA is, protein is a really big surprise, but DNA is impossible, because DNA is more fragile than proteins. Proteins are designed to be more stable. DNA is designed to be read and unwound and recreated and copied, so it's a lot more fragile. So they have said we have a good track record of them saying it's impossible to get DNA from dinosaur bones, impossible to get DNA from dinosaur bones. And so it might surprise you. It surprised me when I first realized, in light of all the Jurassic World and all the Hollywood around this, there is no dinosaur DNA known. It has never been sequenced. And so this is a good opportunity for us as creationists to say, wait a second, our worldview would actually predict that in the right conditions, dinosaur DNA does exist. And so we need to find it and sequence it.
Absolutely.
And so if it seems to me, even if the dinosaurs died 5,000 years ago, finding dinosaur DNA is going to be pretty difficult.
That's right. Because we know that the half-life of DNA, they say, is 521 years. Now, that's based on evolutionary estimates, 520 years. Our timeline would compress that a little further because they were basing it on radiometric dating and such, and our creation interpretation would compress that. So it's less than 500 years, the half-life of DNA. And so even 5,000 years is a long time. And we expect the DNA to be almost completely gone, to be highly degraded, to be very fragmentary. But here's the thing. Under the right conditions, which would be either a very dry condition or a very cold condition, then that degradation process is going to slow down a lot.
On a planet as big as ours, with a catastrophe as big as the flood, and 4,500, 5,000 years of history, chances are those conditions exist somewhere.
Yeah. I mean, we know that there are dinosaur bones in Antarctica, in Alaska. So those are, you asked, is this something that the listeners could help CRS with? The answer is yes. So right now, CRS is not working alone. CRS is a society. So we have members in several different labs. We are creating kind of a team that's going after dinosaur DNA. And there are two sides of this. One side is figuring out the lab techniques, the approaches that we need to use in the lab to be able to extract and sequence the DNA. And then the other side of this is to go out into the field and find fresh samples that we can try to get the DNA from.
Yep.
Man, that sounds fun. I wish I was 20 years old and going to college and I could
There
jump
you
on
go.
a boat. Yeah, I'd love to go.
We'll send you to Antarctica. Yeah.
Well, I seem to recall, and I was looking here and I couldn't find it. In the journal Bone, I thought they had reported finding dinosaur DNA, and then I did find a Scientific American article from 2020, and a Chinese lab claimed that they found signatures of what is DNA. Well, there's a page on Rational Wiki, it's against creationists, and they mention that, pretty much if you find DNA in dinosaurs, you'd expect, if creation is true, if young Earth is true, that you'd find DNA in dinosaurs, but none has been found. It's like, you guys better be careful because we kind of have found it, and yet they still have that little blurb on their Rational Wiki, at least last time I checked. Every time I do a talk, I go and I double check so that I can show that, in my presentation. Here's what they said. They gave a criteria, for dinosaurs fitting in with the Bible, and they say, well, you should find DNA. Well, guess what? I think we are. And Dr. Brown, so what's your take on that? Do you know exactly what has been found as far as dinosaur DNA? Is it still a little bit in the speculative area, or has there been hard proof yet, or is that what we're really trying to discover?
So in the secular world, it's still a little bit in the speculative area. Like I said, they've already chosen sides and said it's impossible. So that kind of biases what they believe will be found. But there are still a couple of secular labs that are interested in it and pursuing it. Mary Schweitzer is still kind of dabbling in it. She's been, although she's not a biblical creationist, she has been dogged in her determination to find these biomolecules in these ancient fossils. And so she's still interested in pursuing it. They haven't been successful yet, but what they have found is there are these dyes that you can use in the lab, and these dyes, they stain DNA. And so they can, section these fossils and find bone cells in them, and they can stain them with this dye, and sure enough, it lights up. The dyes are binding something in there, and it's probably DNA. But what we want, and this would be the gold standard, is actual sequence to be able to sequence the DNA and build some dinosaur genes, maybe a whole dinosaur genome down the road.
Wow. Well, and
Yeah,
so
if you do, they could do a Hollywood movie like, oh, wait a minute, they already did.
Jurassic Park.
And we've seen how that ends.
Yeah, exactly.
be careful.
Yeah.
So Fred, make a note to the producers. We're going to send Mary Schweitzer a link so that she can watch this video, because whether Mary knows it or not, her place in scientific history is already established. It doesn't matter that she tried to back away. It doesn't matter that she's kind of shrunk from it a little bit. Her place in scientific history 1,000 years from now is already there. And so I do hope she does continue to pursue and to work, because she should get the credit that's due for her initial discovery. And someday she will, whether in this life or the next, she will.
And I have to be, we have to be, as scientists, kind of this cautious optimism. That's the approach we take to science, because this is not trivial. This is the sequencing of Neanderthal DNA, which was post-flood DNA. It was done, but it was very hard to do. And so we've got a long road ahead of us, but I'm cautiously optimistic that we're going to be able to get something.
Oh, absolutely. So I want to ask you about collagen and something else. But before we do that, I got to hit Doug with the interesting fact of the week.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, Fred, please ask me something about collagen, because I might know a little bit about collagen.
Okay. Here we go. About collagen. What's the fastest growing plant on the earth? Sorry, it's not about collagen. What's the fastest growing plant on earth?
Okay, well, you had me on that one, Fred, because I was starting to think collagen in a plant. I hadn't heard that, although I know there are a lot of plant-based skin creams that we rub on our face supposed to help with the collagen. Let's see, the fastest growing plant on Earth would be Microsoft's new AI power plant down in Texas. Is that close?
Nope, just kidding, Doug.
All right, so I'm gonna guess it's that black fungus in my shower.
It's the bamboo. Grows up to 35 inches per day.
What? 35 inches a day?
Yeah, up to 35 inches per day.
Wow. Bamboo.
Okay.
So that must be why those little bamboo rugs are so cheap at Walmart, is because this stuff's just out of control.
This grows, yeah.
All right, pretty cool, Fred. Bamboo.
Yeah. All right. So back to collagen. So we interviewed Dr. Carl Baugh, a couple years ago. In their lab, I believe, and Doug, refresh my memory if I'm remembering this wrong, but I thought that they had found collagen in trilobites. Do you recall that? And Brian Thomas was, I think, involved in that a little bit. Joel, have you heard of that at all?
So there's certainly talk of finding soft tissue in even quote unquote older organisms. In our worldview, they are early flood. And I've visited the Creation Evidence Museum, Carl Baugh's lab in Texas, and it's a great place. They've got some really nice facility there and are able to do a lot of good work. So we collaborate with them. I would be cautious though about it requires multiple points of evidence before we can claim there's collagen in a trilobite. But it's a worthwhile thing to go after. But now here's the thing: collagen we would not expect to be in a trilobite, but there could be other proteins there. Collagen is a vertebrate protein. It's in mammals and dinosaurs and things like that. But there would be other structural proteins like potentially chitin, which is abundant in exoskeletons of modern arthropods and insects. So those sorts of things could still be present.
Okay, cause that's what I was remembering, Fred, that they had found proteins. I didn't remember collagen
Yeah,
specifically.
that's the thing. I'm not positive if I remember that correctly. I'm looking back right now, but yeah, I was curious
and
to know if we've got, because when you said where is this leading, my first reaction was, well, now you're going to look for it in trilobites, but then when you gave your next clue, it's leading to finding DNA in dinosaur bones. But so that's what got me thinking of it. So.
Well, and here's the thing. Go ahead, Doug.
Well, just before we move on, I want to let everyone know that according to your kid's biology teacher, if your kid goes to public school, trilobites are over 500 million years old. Just like the oldest thing that's alive. That it's very, very, very old. So finding even a protein in something 500 million years old, pretty impressive.
Yep. Okay, so Dr. Brown, so is there one piece of evidence, you've been a creation scientist for a long time, that you think maybe Christians don't know about that should, especially now with kind of more cutting edge research you're doing? Is there anything that maybe is not hitting the headlines?
So we are talking about it now as far as, and it is hitting the headlines. The soft tissue story, the collagen story, that's a very fascinating story. But I think as far as a research that's been done in the secular world, which again is creation science, all empirical science is creation science. There's a study that I came across. This was in 2016. It's not one I've heard about much, but it has huge implications for creation science. And so we could do a whole talk on it. It's called the minimal cell, the minimal genome. So some scientists at the J. Craig Venter Institute, a kind of a private research foundation, they were interested in taking a living cell, a bacteria, a mycoplasm, and editing the genome to remove everything that was extraneous. Excuse me. And you're only left with the things that are required for life. So they were removing all the extra stuff to see what's the smallest amount of DNA that's required in a living organism. And after removing as much as they could, the simplest living organism created to date that's fully self-replicable is this bacteria that they created. Mycoplasma laboratorium is what they call it. And it has 473 genes. 473 genes are required for a living thing to grow and replicate. And that is a really, really important finding and benchmark, because it kind of lays out the distance between life and non-life at the molecular level, from the goo, the soup, to a living organism. It's 473 genes. And this is empirical science, that we can see today. This is what's required for a living thing to live. And the chasm there is just gigantic. So that's something done by evolutionary scientists, which we need to highlight and capitalize on.
Wow, that's interesting. Yeah, it shows an enormous gap. I'm sure they'll spin it some other way, saying it's only 400 and some odd genes that you need to get started. Of course, that's how, I'm guessing that's how they'll spin it.
Well, and what was interesting about this paper when it was published, they didn't talk about the implications at all for the origin of life. They spun it off as, we are using this. Once we understand the simplest organism, now we can genetically engineer these organisms to produce biofuel. And so they were looking at practical applications. It's a company, so they're trying to monetize it. And yet, the glaring obvious thing in front of us was that, wow, this sets kind of a threshold that has to be crossed for a living thing to come into existence. And it is a high bar.
Yeah, and it sounds like that's pretty good science to do that and to create. So basically, by subtraction, they created a new type of bacteria that they got to name. That's pretty good science. And so how complex are 473 genes? Just being a high school graduate, when I hear 473, sounds kind of like a lot. If I had to do 473 things right all in a row without a mistake, I would find that to be a challenge. So how big of a challenge is that?
It's astronomical. The smallest of these genes is 37 amino acids long, so 37 pieces long, 37 letters long, and just the challenge of assembling that one, the smallest one, is 1 times 10 to the 0, 0, 0. It's astronomically. You're more likely to win the lottery 6 times in a row than to assemble that one protein, and that's the smallest one. Now you have 472 to go, and then, of course, even if you have all of the hardware there, which is the proteins themselves can't function without the software, which is the DNA. So both those things have to be present together. The proteins to copy and manage and read the DNA to make the proteins, which are then copying and reading and managing the DNA. So it is just astronomically complex to talk about and think about how these, even the simplest, this is now, we can say, the simplest living thing, how complex it is.
Yeah, God's invisible attributes are clearly seen. So
Amen.
Everybody's without excuse who denies it. So,
Wow.
Dr. Brown, if you had, let's say we had some great benefactors for Real Science Radio, and they stepped forward and you had unlimited funding for one CRS project, what would it be?
Yeah, we're chasing that dinosaur DNA, and that's not going to be cheap. So here are some of the things that are required. Number one, we've got to go find some of the special conditions to increase our chances of getting DNA from these bones. So there's the actual expeditionary aspect, the field work. Number two, there's a huge the sequencing possibility. So we are extracting and sequencing the DNA in our lab, and there are 2 or 3 other labs, creation science labs, that are working together on this. And sequencing is expensive. So it's a new technology. It's a very powerful technology. And the third thing is, and this is what people don't think about, I didn't think about until we started doing it, the computational side. So we're getting billions and billions and billions of sequence reads, A, T, C, G's coming off these computers. And, you can't just read through that manually. It's a little dense reading. So there's a huge computational side to analyze that DNA. And those are the 3 components. So yeah, that's what we would be directing all those funds towards.
Okay, cool. Well,
Yeah.
and your website is creationresearch.org. I encourage our listeners to go visit the website, become a member of the Creation Research Society. You've got voting members, which are, I think master's degree and higher, and you can be a regular voting or a regular member, just anybody. And I encourage you to sign up for that. You'll get their newsletter. They've got a CRS quarterly, which is peer-reviewed scientific journal. It's just a great resource for creationists. It has been since 1963. So
That's right.
Fred, I think, to add on to that, we are in an important transition, an important stage here. I'm excited about the future of the CRS. For students that are out there, it is free membership. This is just like any professional society. There are costs involved with it, but for students, it's free because we really want to engage and raise up the next generation of creation researchers. So check us out.
Yep. Well,
Yeah, definitely. And CRS has a director of research. Is that your official title?
I go by the CRS director.
Director. They have a director who says all science is creation science. So
You heard it here first.
There you go. We're going to coin that phrase. We're going to steal that phrase, but we will always credit you whenever we borrow that phrase. So when you join the Creation Research Society, just know that your dues are going toward creation science, real science, and just some really fun, exciting stuff. Sounds great, Dr. Brown.
It's a good time to be a creation scientist.
yeah. And thank you for taking the mantle from, the late, great Dr. Kevin Anderson. Really appreciate the work. Obviously, things are looking really great at the Creation Research Society. It's real encouraging to have you on Real Science Radio and to hear all this great news. It's great to be in touch again with Creation Research Society. say hi to Diane for me. She's
I will do
force
that.
behind the scenes. The amount of work she does is incredible.
Yes.
So
Yes, she is. Hey, can I share one of my favorite verses here? A
yes,
motivation for doing what we're doing. Revelation 4:11. Thou art worthy, O Lord, to receive glory and honor and power, for thou hast created all things, and for thy pleasure they are and were created. We are just trying to give credit to whom credit is due.
Amen.
absolutely.
Amen. And thanks for reminding us, Dr. Brown, how many times in the Bible God refers to his creation. He's proud of it. It's one of his glorious crowning achievements. And for us to get to investigate it and to help someone like you investigate it, it's just an honor and a blessing. We appreciate you being with us.
Thanks for the invite.
All right. So for Doug McBurney and Dr. Joel Brown of the Creation Research Society, I'm Fred Williams. May God bless you.